Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here on the traditional lands of Treaty 7 First Nations, and I would also like to recognize and acknowledge Métis people of Alberta who share a deep connection with this land. I'm Irfan Sabir. I'm MLA for Calgary-Buller-McCall and NDP Justice Critic. I'm joined by my colleagues Kathleen Ganley, Energy Critic and MLA for Calgary Mountain View, Joe Ceci, MLA for Calgary-Buffalo and NDP Municipal Affairs Critics, and of course our leader Rachel Notley, MLA for Edmonton Strathcona. We are also joined today by Kevin Shackledine, who is an Albertan living on Ish. We are here today to announce our proposal to help fight the urgent cost of living crisis facing Alberta families, a crisis that is only getting worse. This week, we learned inflation is at a 30-year high, 5.7%, the highest rate since 1991. This drives up costs on everything: groceries, clothes, rent, you name it. And I'm hearing about these costs from my constituents who are seeing their costs of living go up while their paycheck stays the same. While the UCP are fighting amongst themselves and focused on their own power struggle, the Alberta NDP is taking action on affordability because we care about families. Our party is putting forward a better plan, one that supports families and helps them not just barely get by, but actually get ahead. This is what we are focused on. Here to talk about that today is our leader, Rachel Notley.
Thank you so much, Irfan. And of course, no surprise, I agree quite a bit with what you're saying. You know, here's the thing. Albertans are seeing their hard-earned income simply not going as far as it used to be able to do. And families are telling me that they're just having trouble making ends meet. They're trying to afford the essentials, while the power and the gas bills go through the roof. And things like car insurance and school fees get more and more expensive. And this impacts all Albertans. So many folks have reached out to me about these kinds of issues. Here's one. Red Deer resident Joanne Bueller, who wanted to come today but had to work. And she said, and I quote, "With no cost of living increase for AISH recipients, it's more difficult than ever to meet basic requirements for a low standard of living. I, as a single person, have to choose between heating or eating every month." That's the end of what she has to say. It's simply getting more difficult to live. Albertans need their government to acknowledge the real pressure families are under because of inflation, unprecedented levels of inflation, and then they need to take real action. And so that's what I'm here today to talk about. I'm here to make an explicit commitment to the people of Alberta, something you will see in next year's platform for election 2023. If Albertans elect an NDP government, we will fix the tax code in order to fight inflation. We will inflation-proof your budget by giving you back more of your income taxes and more in benefits at the same rate as inflation. If inflation goes up to 5%, so does the income tax system. You earn or you keep more of your income so that inflation doesn't mean that you end up with less. If inflation goes up 5%, so do benefit programs. More help for families, for seniors, and for the most vulnerable in our province. This is a simple change that has big benefits. And I want to be very clear. At today's sky-high inflation rate, the largest that we have seen in 3 decades, what the NDP is proposing will amount to billions of dollars in tax relief for Albertans and for their families. Let me be clear. If implemented today, the average family of 4, two dual earners, 2 children, would be $400 further ahead every year. A seniors couple would see $350 more. every year. And an Albertan with a long-term severe disability living on AISH, well, that person would see $1,000 more every year. So we will scrap the UCP's billion-dollar tax crap, and we will make sure that benefits keep pace with prices. That, folks, is real relief from inflation. What's happening today is wrong. The UCP has decided that inflation is your problem, not theirs. And instead of helping to bring down the cost of living, what they've done instead is they've scrapped the caps on electricity premiums, and they've scrapped the cap on insurance costs. And the Premier refuses to listen to what has been in the past his own advice on this inflationary bracket creep. The truth is, inflation is helping them drive up the provincial surplus, which means, in the simplest of terms, Albertans are paying for it. It's why Albertans just can't trust the UCP. An NDP government would level the playing field. When costs go up, you get more. That's our approach, and it's better for Albertans. So to all Albertans who can't afford their bills, who are struggling to keep the lights on, I hear you, and the NDP will take action. And this is what having an NDP government would look like. A strong focus on economic diversification, creating good jobs in our communities, protecting our healthcare system, preventing American-style healthcare, and ensuring instead that it remains accessible to all. And putting families first, giving them more help to get ahead. And help is on the way. If Albertans put their trust in me and my colleagues, we will do everything we can to address these cost of living pressures and the crisis it's creating in your family budget each and every month. Thank you so much. And before we take questions, I'd like to invite Albertan Kaveen Shekilden to speak a little bit about what these proposed changes would mean to her.
Thank you, Rachel. So my name is Kaveen Shekilden, and I have been receiving AISH since I was 18, and I was diagnosed with cognitive delay. I have been looking for part-time employment, but opportunities are very limited. AISH is currently my primary income I rely on every month. My AISH amount hasn't changed, but everything else has gone up. The UCP froze AISH and even changed the payment dates, excluding statutory holidays, just to make their budget look good. And really this has hurt so many Albertans in this province. It is very distressing and hard on my mental health. Lately, the costs of food is going rocket high, and I have to eat gluten-free, which costs even more. My rent is also going up, and there have been more cuts to subsidize housing in this province and city. I have had to get a loan to make my ends meet. $1,000 more a year would help make a difference for me and Albertans like me. It would make a huge difference in helping me afford to keep up with all these costs, and I am glad the NDP is fighting for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kaveen. So we're happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person. Okay, no questions in person. We'll move to the phone lines. Just a reminder, if you're joining by Zoom, to use the raise hand function, and if you're joining by phone, to press *9. First question goes to Safe Kaiser.
My question for Rachel, not really off topic, but timely nonetheless. Several people on the right are making allegations there's a Brian Jean, Rachel Notley alliance, while others, like the former Justice Minister, are taking shots at you and saying things like, Brian Jean wants to invite Rachel Notley and her band of socialists into cabinet meetings. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on those kinds of comments.
Well, mostly what I would say is that I think that the three people left in the Premier's communications office who aren't directed out to do phoning for him today really, really, really need to get a little bit more sleep. That is one of the most tortured attack lines that I've ever heard, and I really don't think that it deserves a lot more attention than pretty much that.
Follow-up, Safe?
I figure I may as well ask. If that were the case, being here and inviting you to a cabinet meeting, would you accept that invitation, and would you have extended it out to him or another Conservative leader had you been in power?
Well, I think there's always a strong opportunity in times of crisis to reach across the aisle and work with your opponents, whether you're in opposition or whether you're in government. Certainly, when I was Premier and we had the crisis in Fort McMurray, we worked very, very hard to make sure that the leader of the official opposition, who was Brian Jean at the time, was regularly briefed about what was going on and was given full access to public officials to have his questions answered. And that's the kind of thing that ultimately could move towards getting more joint problem-solving efforts in place. And indeed, we had that kind of relationship around Fort McMurray. So that's the kind of thing we'd want to do. I think swearing into cabinet might be a bit awkward for a bunch of different reasons, but for sure, I think that if you can work together that way, that's a good thing to do.
Okay, next up we have Audrey Nouveau.
Hi there. Back to your proposed reindexation to inflation of the tax brackets and also state benefits. How much do you estimate that would cost in 1 year?
In 1 year, I'd say it'd be around 300 million or so. We know that over the course of the fiscal plan, as a result of the UCP government's refusal to do this, that they're essentially costing Alberta families about $1 billion, or taking about $1 billion from the pockets of regular families. So, so that's over the term of 3 years. So that's roughly what the cost would be.
Follow-up, Audrey?
Yes, and it's been already at least 2 years that age benefits have been stalling. By the time you could eventually be in government, it will have been a couple of years that those benefits will have gone up, tax brackets staying the same. So how do you plan to catch up on that backlog?
Well, I think the first most important step would be to begin the process of protecting people from inflation from that point going forward. And then at that time, we'd look at the economy, we'd look at the budget, and we'd look at how far back we could go to try and help people catch up. And so absolutely that is part of it too. But the first step is to protect people going forward, something that is not happening right now.
Okay, next up is Dylan Short.
Hi there. Also a little bit off topic, but going back to something that your party was bringing up earlier, the utility disconnection moratorium ends next month. Obviously, you guys have been hearing from people that are worried about that. I was wondering if there's any sort of sense of how many Albertans are at risk due to this.
I don't think that, I think there's a lot of folks. Basically, we know that, tens of thousands are behind in their bills at the very least. And we don't know the exact details, but we do know that the government has the opportunity to protect those families. And that's what we're asking for them to do, because it really comes down to the discretion of the utility company how long they tolerate people having bills that they can't pay. But we don't think anybody, not even one person, should have to live under the threat of losing their heat or losing their electricity because of completely unpredictable utility bills.
Follow up, Dylan?
Yeah, have you had any discussions with those utility companies? As you said, it's ultimately their discretion of when to disconnect or when to work with customers. So I was wondering if you've had any conversations with them and what you're hearing from that side of things.
We haven't directly. We're reaching out to them. We've sent some letters to have further conversations and to consult with how the best way would be to go forward. But at the end of the day, we think that in the short term, we need to make sure we have people protected, and then we would work with them in the future about how to make sure that they got the money that they needed paid to them in a way that still protects Albertans while ensuring that these businesses are able to meet their objectives.
Okay, we'll do one more pass for questions on the line. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, me again. Thanks for taking extra questions. Again, off topic, but I've been looking into this Kananaskis Conservation Pass. I know that there's concerns on different fronts from it. But we've heard that there's about 5 million visitors to Kananaskis country a year. However, the government only sold about 250,000 passes, which doesn't show great compliance rates. I've heard from a number of critics that say, if you're going to make a pass, it needs to be successful, but there's also concerns around, making it expensive to be there. I would just want to get your take on the compliance as well as the pass as a whole.
Well, I think, I'm less concerned about the compliance because I think the pass is a bad idea. Alberta families are struggling. They've been struggling through the last 2 years for all the kinds of things that we know about. And they're also struggling with affordability and rising bills right now. And our land, our mountains, our parks are the things that people should be able to go to as part of finding relief from this stress and these pressures. And they shouldn't be put out of reach because of a lack of affordability. And what I can say is that when we were government, we invested in upgrades to these parks. And we did it without putting in place fees that restricted people's access. So I just think it's wrong, period.
Any other questions, Dylan?
No, that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, we have a question from Dean Bennett.
Oh, hi, Rachel. Just sort of, this has just happened in the last few minutes, I guess. The Calgary Police Service got an injunction, alcohol injunction, to try and deal with some of these Beltline protests on the weekend. What do you think about that? What more should the province be doing to sort of try and get a handle on these protests?
Okay, I'm just going to pass that over to Joe Ceci, who's been very involved in that issue.
Hi, Dean. I've been down there the last couple of weeks talking to residents, talking to businesses in the Beltline, and kind of witnessing what goes on. And I can tell you that the 2,000 or so protesters that are down there blocking up the entrances to businesses, making all kinds of noise and disruption on 4th Street, 17th Avenue, and occupying Memorial Park for the day. I can tell you that this is a huge disruption that's been going on for far too long. And the city of Calgary, I'm glad they acted to address this. It's unfortunate that the province, just like the Coots situation, delayed, didn't do anything, and relied on the RCMP eventually after 2+ weeks to address this. I think the protesters, I haven't seen the intricacy of the injunction myself, so I want to read that to find out. And and more about it. But I'm going to be shipping a letter to the Solicitor General and Justice Minister asking them to step up to support the City of Calgary so that we actually deal with this once and for all and return the Beltline to the way it used to be, which is the highest density neighborhood in Alberta should be a place people can call home instead of a ground zero for protesters week after week after week for over a year. That's got to stop, and the city obviously didn't get any assistance from the province. I'm going to, and it's not unlike the masking bylaw that the province said, you take care of municipalities, and then they yank it away from them with the MGA amendment just last week. This province is a do-nothing kind of approach to everything, and frankly, I'm glad the City of Calgary has taken steps and the police service has taken steps to address this situation at its heart. Thanks.
Follow-up, Dean?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, that's all for today.
That's it? Tens of thousands of Albertans have already provided their idea for how we can build Alberta's future. You can too by going to albertasfuture.ca.